Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are beginning to talk about areas. This is the new unit, Unit 4B. Today we are going to begin with perimeters and areas of parallelograms. I'm sure you already know perimeter, but let's go over area. So first we have the area addition postulate. What it says is that the area of a region is the sum of its non-overlapping parts. This will be important later on in the chapter. Okay, so for the area of a parallelogram, this is important. This is a new formula. Any side can be the base, but the height must be perpendicular to the base. Remember, the symbol for perpendicular is this, an upside down T, and it means it creates a right angle. The area of a parallelogram formula is equal to the base times the height. So as you can see in the picture, the base could be something like this. The height has to be perpendicular to the base. Okay, so let's try an example together. Example 1, find the area and the perimeter of parallelogram ABCD. So what I want you to do on this is use this process, ESSA. E stands for equation. S stands for substitution. The second S stands for solve. A stands for answer. And this should actually be A plus because you want your answer plus your units. All right, so for example, we'll start out with E, the equation. The equation for area is equal to base times height since it's a parallelogram. Now, in order to find the area, we need the base and the height. Remember, we said the base could be any side, but the height has to be perpendicular to it. So since I see this right angle symbol right here, I'm going to let 5 be the height. Now the base has to be perpendicular to the height, which is this side BC. Now, it doesn't tell me the length of BC. However, I know that opposite sides in a parallelogram are congruent, so I know that BC must be 10 inches. So the next step is S, substitution. Area, that's what we're trying to solve for, so we'll leave it as its variable A. B stands for base. The base here is 10 inches. The height is 5 inches. The next S stands for solve. Once you substitute your numbers in, you need to solve for the variable. So to solve this, all we have to do is 10 times 5. That's 50. Now A stands for my answer. So the answer is that the area equals 50. And if I want an A plus, I better include my units. So on this, it was inches. And for area, it's always inches times inches, which gives us inches squared. Okay, next let's find the perimeter. The perimeter is always equal to the sum of all the sides. So to substitute in my variables, or my values, I have 10 plus 4 plus 10. Now the side that I'm missing is AB, but since AB is opposite DC, I know opposite sides are congruent in a parallelogram, so I know it's also 4. Once I have 4 sides added together, I can move to my next step, solve. 10 plus 4 plus 10 plus 4 gives me 28. So my answer is that the perimeter is equal to 28 inches. All right, I'd like you to pause the video and try each of these below. Okay, so let me give you the answers quickly. For this one, the area is going to end up being 315 centimeters squared, and the perimeter is 76 centimeters. For 1B, the area is 552 feet squared, and the perimeter is 96 feet. Now follow along if you still need help on how to get these. So for this, we know area, since it's a parallelogram, is equal to the base times the height. So for this, I see that here's my right angle symbol. So I'm going to call this dotted pink line my height. Now whatever's perpendicular to that is going to be my base. So this side here, the entire side is the base. And I know opposite sides are congruent, so I know this is 21 centimeters. However, I still don't know the height. So I need to do a little bit of extra work on this one to find the height. Hopefully you notice that this triangle here is a right triangle. Therefore, I can use the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So what I have here is h squared plus 8 squared equals 17 squared. So that gives me h squared plus 64 equals 289. To get h squared by itself, I subtract 64 on both sides. That gives me 225. Now to get h by itself, I need to square root both sides. That gives me 15 for the height. Now I can go back to my problem and substitute. So when I substitute in, the base is 21, the height is 15. Now to solve, I multiply 21 times 15. That gives me 315. And then all I need to do to get the answer is put on my units. All right, the perimeter is equal to the sum of the sides. So since it's a parallelogram, I should have 4 sides added together. So I substitute in all my sides. I have 21 plus 17 plus 21 plus, now again, this is opposite of the 17 centimeters, so it also has to be 17 centimeters. When I add those all up, I get 76 for the perimeter, which means that the perimeter is equal to 76 centimeters. Similarly, for this problem, I can do area without any extra work. So the area, again, equation is area equals base times height. When I go to substitute in the base and the height, I see this right angle here. So I know that 24 feet is the height, 23 feet is the base, since those are perpendicular to each other. The base is only 23, since that's the part that's only on the parallelogram. We don't include the 7 in with the base because 7 feet is not part of the parallelogram. So I'll plug in my variables. The base is 23. The height is 24. To solve this, I multiply 23 times 24. That gives me 552. Then for my answer, I just need to add my units on. So it's 552 feet squared. The perimeter is equal to the sum of the sides. So I should have 4 sides to add. However, right now I only know 2 sides. I know 23 feet for the base, which I used before, and I know that the side opposite that is also 23 feet. Now 24 feet is not the length of this side. What I need to do to find the length of that side is look at this right triangle again. So I'm going to go do some work up here. I know that 24 squared plus 7 squared would be equal to, I'm just going to call this x, that's hard to read though. So let's call that x, so it equals x squared. Remember, c always has to be the hypotenuse, which is the side across from the right angle. So I get 576 plus 49 equals x squared. Add up 576 plus 49, that gives me 625 equals x squared. To get x by itself, I need to square root both sides. So that gives me x is equal to 25. Now I can continue with my problem. So I have that the perimeter would be equal to 23 plus 25 plus 23 plus, again, the opposite side here would also be equal to x. So again, 25. Add all those up to solve, you'll get 96, and then add on the units for your final answer. Okay, sometimes they won't necessarily give you the height and you have to do extra work to solve for it. The last time we were just using Pythagorean theorem, but we can also use our special triangles. So just as a quick reminder on our special triangles, we have the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Remember, the sides are both the same. And we use S radical 2 for these sides. And then we have our 30, 60, 90 triangle. And these sides are S, the hypotenuse is 2S, and the side across from the 60-degree angle is S radical 3. Okay, so bring it back over here. Now, find the area of the parallelogram. So I need an equation. Area of a parallelogram is equal to base times height. Next step is substitution. I'm trying to find the area, so I leave that as just A. The base is the side that's perpendicular to the height, so it's 15. The height, they told me, is h, but I need to figure out what the height is by using this 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I'm going to label my sides. I have S radical 2, and this side, the height is equal to S. So remember, if I can solve this equation right here, for S, then I'll know S and I'll know the height. So I need to solve S radical 2 is equal to 8.5. To solve that, it's S times radical 2, so I need to divide by radical 2 on both sides. So I get 8.5 divided by radical 2. And we could fix this so it doesn't have a radical in the denominator. So you remember we rationalize it by multiplying by radical 2 over radical 2. So that gives me 8.5 radical 2 over, now radical 2 times radical 2, that gives me radical 4. But I know the square root of 4 is just 2. And you don't need to really worry about simplifying that much further because we're going to be plugging it into another equation anyways. Okay, so next is solve. In order to solve this, I need to multiply 15 times 8.5 radical 2 over 2. That gives me 90.156 if I round it. Now my answer plus units, the area is equal to 90.156 millimeters squared. All right, I'd like you to pause and try these two for both of them. You can round to the nearest thousandth. All right, so for this one, 2A, it's a 45, 45, 90. My legs are both equal to S. So since 9 equals S, that's already solved, I know that the height is also equal to S. So I'm going to start out with my equation. Area equals base times height. Substitute. Area equals the base. So I see that this top side is 17 yards. So that means that the base, the entire other side, is also equal to 17 yards. And the height, remember, has to be perpendicular to the base. I said since 9 is equal to S, the height is equal to also 9. Next is solve. To solve this, I do 17 times 9. That gives me 153. answer plus, I give the area is equal to 153 yards squared. All right, 2B, this one is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. This side is S, the height is equal to S radical 3. So let's start it out. Equation, area equals base times height. Substitution, area equals, again, the opposite side is 32 meters. That means this base is also 32 meters. So the base is 32. The height, since S is equal to 12, that means that my height, since height is equal to S radical 3, I plug in 12 for S. So I get 12 radical 3 for the height. Next, S is solve, so I multiply this out in my calculator, and I get 665.108. And for an A plus, I need an answer plus units. So the area equals 665.108 meters squared. All right, next we're going to look at area and perimeter of triangles. So for the area of a triangle, the base, again, can be any side. The height must just be perpendicular, same as before. And this area formula comes from area congruence postulate, which basically says in congruent figures, the areas are congruent. So basically what we do is we take this parallelogram and we split it up into two congruent triangles. So we know the area of the parallelogram is base times height. So to find the area of the triangle, we just want half of the parallelogram. So we'll do half of the base times the height. So you can also use base times height divided by 2. Whichever one works better for you, they're both correct. All right, we're skipping example 3, the real world. We're going to move right down to these practice problems. And I'd like you to try these on your own. If you wanted to find the area of the triangles below, which side would you use as the base? What would the height be? For this, you can round the height to the nearest thousandth again. All right, pause and see if you can find the base and the height for each one. Okay, so hopefully for this one, you said that the base should be this side, 19 inches, and the height would be the perpendicular, 30 inches. The reason I chose 19 as the base is because it's the only side on here that I have something perpendicular to. Next, for 3B, the base, I see I have this side, 29 centimeters, is perpendicular to this side. So the base is 29 centimeters. The height, I'm not quite sure yet, but I can use this right triangle to figure out the height. So I know a squared plus b squared equals c squared in a right triangle. So I know 6 squared plus the height squared must equal 13 squared. So that gives me 36 plus the height squared equals 169. So the height squared equals 133. And I need to square root both sides, so the height is equal to square root of 133. You can just leave it there, or you can plug that into your calculator to get 11.533. So I'll come back up here. My height would be 11.533 centimeters. And they didn't ask us to solve for the area, it just says if you wanted to solve for the area, what would you use? So there are your answers there. All right, we're skipping example 4, the first one. We're going to do this practice problem together. So this one, the only reason it's a little different is because they gave us the area and they want us to find x, the value of x. So we're going to follow these same steps. Equation, substitution, solve, answer plus. Okay, so the equation still is area equals 1/2 base times height, or you could use area equals base times height divided by 2. So to substitute this in, we have the area is equal to 357. The base on this would be 34. The height is x. Now to solve this, the first thing I would do is multiply 1/2 by 34. 1/2 times 34, that's the same as 34 divided by 2. That gives me 17 times x. Now to solve this for x, I need to divide by 17 on both sides. So what that gives me is 357 divided by 17. So that gives me x is equal to 21. Now my answer plus units, x equals 21 inches. All right, your homework for tonight is close to this, what's listed on here, but I want you to not do these two problems. Instead, I'd like you to do the guided practice problem. For 4A on page 782. So skip 24 and 34, instead do guided practice problem number 4A on page 782. Have a great rest of your night. Make sure you still do goal 1 and the DRQ. Those are still assigned like normal, but goal 2 is a little different. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys.